All right, let's take a look at number 4. Jeremiah can run 4 miles in 13 hours. How long does it take him to run 1 mile in hours and seconds? That was a little confusing. So we're going to actually ignore this part of the question. So Jeremiah can run 4 miles in 13 hours. How long does it take him to run 1 mile? There's a relationship between the amount of miles and the amount of time it takes. So we're talking about a ratio of miles to hours. Miles to hours. So we know that he can run 4 miles in 13 hours. But the question is how long, so that's time, how long does it take him to run 1 mile? We want to know, what would the relationship between miles and hours be if it was going to be 1 mile? So there are a couple of things that you can do to figure out the hours. You can cross multiply and divide, or you can scale. So you can look at this and say, to get from 4 to 1, I divide it by 4. So then you would divide your 13 by 4. And this is calculator active. So 13 divided by 4 gave me 3 and 25 hundredths. So my answer would be 3 and 25 hundredths hours. And that is the same thing as 3 whole hours and a quarter of an hour. So that's 15 minutes. So another way you could have solved this is by cross multiplying and dividing. So you could have multiplied 13 times 1. And we already know that any number multiplied by 1 gives you itself. And then you divide by the lonely number, divided by 4. And it gives you the same solution. Okay? Let's move on to number 5. I'm sorry about that noise. I don't know how to fix it. Our computer is a little janky. So let's take a look at number 5. Mr. Martinez spent $75 on lunch for his 15 students. If lunch costs the same, what is the price of one lunch? So some of you are already thinking that, hey, I can just divide the price by how many students he paid for. So you could easily do 75 divided by 15, and it gives you 5. 5 per lunch. Another way you could do this is by, that's supposed to be a money sign. Another way you could do this is by setting up a proportion. There's a relationship between money and students. And we know that $75 covered 15 students. But the question is asking us to find the price for one student or one lunch. So you can solve this like a proportion, and you would still get the same question. So you can scale down. 15 divided by 15 would have given you 1. So 75 divided by 15 would give you 5. Or you could cross multiply. 1 times 75 gives you 75 divided by 15, and you would still get 5. Let's look at number 6. TJ traveled 124 miles in 2 hours. How many miles did TJ travel each hour? Again, you can set this up as a proportion, or you can simply divide. I'm going to do the proportion. There is a relationship between miles and hours. So my ratio of miles to hours is 124 miles in 2 hours. But we are trying to find the unit rate. So each hour means 1 hour. 1 hour. So you can scale or you can cross multiply and divide. I'm going to cross multiply. 124 times 1 is 124. And then 124 divided by 2 gives me 62. So to answer the question, TJ can travel 62 miles in 1 hour. All right, let's take a look at question number 7. 4 people recorded the distance they ran, and amount of time it took them in the table below. So here are the runners: Mike, Sharon, Jennifer, Heather. Mike ran 10 miles in 90 minutes. Sharon ran 12 miles in 144 minutes. Jennifer ran 8 miles in 80 minutes. Heather ran 13 miles in 130 minutes. Which person ran the fastest per mile? We know that per means 1, so we're trying to find the unit rate. The unit rate. So there are a couple of things that you can do. I'm going to do it 2 different ways. The first way is to set up a proportion and show the relationship between miles and minutes. So this will be for Mike. So Mike ran 10 miles in 90 minutes, but if we're trying to find the unit rate, or per mile, 1 mile, that means we can set up a proportion. 1 mile, we want to know how much time that's going to take. Now we can cross, multiply, and divide. So 1 times 90 is 90, divided by the lonely number 10, that's a 10, is 9. So Mike can run 9, it will take Mike, 9 minutes. 9 minutes to run each mile, okay? So I'm going to write 9 minutes. 9 minutes. Another thing we can do is to just simply divide. If you want to know how long it takes to run 1 mile, if you do the time divided by the amount of miles they ran, it's going to give you the unit rate. So if we would have done 90 divided by 10, that would have left us with 9. So let's go ahead and do 144 divided by 12. Many of you know the answer to that, but just to prove it to you, that would give you 12, because 12 times 12 equals 144. So Sharon can run her mile in 12 minutes, Now let's look at Jennifer. Let's see if we could do this in our head. It took her 80 minutes to do 8 miles. So 80 divided by 8 is 10 minutes. And 130 for Heather, 130 minutes for 13 miles. Well, 130 divided by 13 is 10 minutes. Now the question is, which person ran the fastest? So fastest means the smallest time. Well, 9, 12, 10, 10. Mike is the winner because he had the least amount of time. So Mike ran the fastest per mile. All right, let's take a look at number 8. The table below shows the number of problems correct on a test and the corresponding test score. At this rate, so the number correct, 20 correct, score is 100, 19 correct, 95, 18 correct, you got a 90, 17 is 85. So another word for score in this case would be a grade. At this rate, how many problems did student get correct who received a test score of 60? So we want to know that if the score, we're going to extend our table, if the score is 60, what would the number correct be? Well, this entire table is full of equivalent ratios. So if we do it at the same rate, we should be able to figure out what this is. So let's set up a proportion. We know that if you got, so we're comparing number correct and the score. And we have score down here, incorrect up here. We're trying to figure out if somebody got a test score of 60, how many problems did they get correct? So let's take out any ratio. I'm going to take the first one because it's the most convenient. So for this ratio, 20 to 100, if you got 20 problems correct, your score was 100. That makes me believe that there are 20 questions on the test. So, but what happens if you get a score of 60? How many did you get right? This is a proportion, so we can easily cross multiply and divide. So 20 times 60, 1,200, and then we're going to do it we're going to divide that by 100, which would give us 12. So if you were to get a score of 60, that means you got 12 problems correct.